So I'm here with John. John, thanks for coming along to this morning's breakfast. How did you find it?
Look, I found it very interesting. The automation is a great opportunity for warehousing,
Yep.
and there's Swisslog, what they're doing has been very interesting.
Yep.
So it's been a very interesting presentation today.
Fantastic. And what's your type of business? How are you involved with supply chain?
So look, I'm a supply chain and logistics consultant. That's partly my interest in terms of warehouse automation, and I help our clients look at ways of trying to create value. We heard today that there's issues with shortages of labour, and I definitely think that that lower skill or repetitive tasks that we heard about is it does lend itself to automation, which then free people up to do sort of more highly valued tasks. So I definitely think there's, particularly here in Australia. I mean, just by the nature of our country, the wages are higher, say, than the US. And yet, I'd say, on observation, I just came back from the US in March. I was at ProMat. Is that they're a lot more advanced and ahead of us here, and yet we probably have the greater opportunity.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that people here, it's not about replacing jobs, it's actually upskilling, because there's a labour shortage anyway, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So.
And what about things like the neighbours rating? Is that something that you'd known about before?
Look, I have known about building efficiency ratings, but I didn't actually realise that was the name of the organisation. It makes, it's quite amusing really when you hear it for the first time.
Yeah.
But and the fact that they've now extended it into warehousing and cold stores, I think is exciting for businesses. That's that old saying that people do: if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. And so now being able to measure your rating, put in a plan, and then remeasure, I think it's a fantastic way to go for the industry. So it's great that they've actually got something. So really, that was something I learned. So that was definitely a value add today for me. Yeah.
Fantastic. And finally, last question for you, with the accounting firm HLB presenting around ESG reporting. That's something that you're probably seen as a supply chain consultant as well, ramping up.
Look, I think again, when you're in sort of the larger corporates, you're hearing more and more around this area, and I think this is ultimately just a reflection on, let's say, a social license to operate. Is sort of probably defining, are you being responsible? Because I think we're, as citizens, we're all over basically the rape and pillage approach, perhaps that's happened in the past, and now it's about putting in place your performance to get funding from your shareholders. Like if you've got a good ESG rating, you're more likely to get funding. I think it was a very compelling case to focus on it, and I suppose even if you're small, you should be still focusing on it. And I think the thing I've always thought of about with both with neighbours and ESG is actually it's not just a obligation. You can actually get it's a compelling economic case behind it. That social license, but also the benefits you get when you actually start to minimise or reuse or eliminate, let's call it waste.
Yeah. There's a lot of win-win benefits across the board.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming, John.
No
really
problem.
glad that you enjoyed it, and looking forward to seeing another event hopefully soon.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Thanks.
That's great. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.